That will bring us to our action items. We had no one sign up for public participation, so item number 13 is to take action on any matters where it's necessary, and I think the only item we have is the selected employment items shown in Exhibit A. Do I have a motion? Mr. Halterwanger.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the selected employment items listed in Exhibit A.
Have a second? Ms. Baumgartner seconds. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. That passes unanimously. That brings us to item number 14, which is our second and final reading of the capital budget for 2017, 2018, shown in Exhibit C. Do I have a motion? Ms. Hutchison.
I move that we give second and final reading of the capital budget for 2017, 2018, as shown in Exhibit C.
Have a second? Ms. Hammond seconds. And do we have any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. And that passes unanimously. That brings us to item number 15, which is the approval of the resolution for selling bonds shown in Exhibit D. And tonight we have Ms. Franny Heiser here with McNair Law Firm. Do you think it'd be appropriate to have Ms. Heiser present to us before we have a motion and a second? So Ms. Heiser, if you'd like to come forward and walk us through this, and then we'll do our motions.
Good evening, everyone. It's great to be with y'all. I think this is my first visit to this school, and it's just as nice as all the rest. So I always love being able to visit your different facilities. So tonight we do have for your consideration a resolution that would authorize the issuance of not to exceed $11 million of general obligation bonds of the school district. I think that this is your annual capital maintenance, your capital projects resolution. So I think y'all have, just approved your capital budget for 17-18. And I think that the bonds that would be authorized in this resolution would basically pay for the projects you just approved. This resolution is substantially similar to ones y'all have seen before. This debt, we're recommending that it be sold through the SCAGO program. That means that you will get the lowest possible interest cost as well as the lowest possible cost of issuance. So all in, this is probably the most efficient way for you to access the capital that you need for your projects beginning this summer. And this debt will be issued and closed and available in the bank by no later than May of this year. I'd be glad to answer any questions y'all might have.
And we have Mr. White.
I'm just curious, where are the rates today?
Yeah, I knew y'all were going to ask that, and I should have asked Mike Gallagher. But the rates continue, I think, to be low and very favorable for debt that is has this short of term. This debt will be issued in May and repaid by next March, so it's actually less than a year. And I think those interest rates are still in around the 1% range. Might be a little less, might be a little bit more, but still in terms of an overall capital plan and cost of capital, the rates are still very favorable.
Mr. Cates, excuse me.
This may be for Mr. Richardson, I'm not sure. I see we're looking at the capital budget that we just approved at $10 million, but as I noticed, we are authorizing not to exceed $11 million. Why the $1 million difference there?
Yeah, and I can support your answer. Sure, go ahead, Lynn. Or I can't. One of the things that we work with y'all on every year is to quantify the exact value of a debt service mill for the school district, together with any balances that might be in your sinking fund balances. And the goal has always been to actually borrow as much as you can, but stay within the millage limitation that this board set years ago. So y'all have had a constant, I think it's like 55 mills or 50 mills. y'all have been pretty constant for a long period of time, but because occasionally the value of a mill can be a little bit higher or less in any given year, that we try to make sure that the millage stays level. We call that millage stabilization. And so this year, if your number of mills that you've committed to would result in, let's say, $10,500,000, then that would be the amount of debt that you would want on the books. If you did not borrow the amount that would justify or have the millage at your millage stabilization level, the mills could bounce up and down in any given year, and that tends to not be satisfactory both to taxpayers and for planning purposes. But so we wouldn't borrow more than could be managed within the millage limitation that y'all have made. And if this board decides that 10 million is it, you would not choose to borrow anymore, I mean, that's a policy decision that certainly is y'all's decision, but it could result in the mills being a little bit less this year. And then next year, if you needed to have a little bit more millage, then you could actually have a millage increase. And then we try to avoid that seesawing and yo-yoing back and forth.
And Mr. Cates, just for your information, the current capital budget that we're operating under right now, the resolution for not to exceed $11 million, but actually, with the value of the mill, it only brought us about $9.5 million for the current year.
So to be clear, you're stating that we may borrow less than the capital budget. Historically, we have borrowed less than the capital budget that was approved.
No, not historically. It just happened this past year.
Okay.
And I think that this number in the bond resolution is the not to exceed maximum number. So it would be very typical that you have a not to exceed number in your resolution, but the amount borrowed is actually less than the full amount authorized in the resolution. This document delegates to the superintendent or his designee, and so the administration works very closely with the school district's financial advisors to come up with the exact, most correct number as we approach the bond sale.
One last question, just, and again, I apologize, it's the new guy, right? Always. In the event that we sell bonds and we incur debt over and above the 10 million capital budget that we just approved, where's that additional money, regardless of the amount? Where's that set aside, and how's that accounted for, just in the sense of transparency? I mean, we're saying we have a $10 million capital budget. I just want to understand what happens if we do borrow over that amount.
Well, and I hope that happens, honestly, because it was tough this year being $500,000 short of what our budget was. But obviously, with the $500,000 shortfall this year, things that we did not do in the current year, we'll be able to do next year. But what we'll do is come back, obviously, and amend our budget to show you exactly where. What we would probably more than likely do is set it aside as something that the schools identify that we would pay for.
Thank you.
Good question. Ms. Hammond?
That was my same question. If we did happen to, even though it'd be a good thing, we had more than we needed, it just stays in, if I got your answer right that he just asked, it would stay in the capital budget
absolutely.
funds
Oh,
and
absolutely.
then do things we need. That's where it would be.
And it won't be more than we need, I promise you.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm not sure any school district ever has the luxury of accessing more than they need. It's just what the priorities are and how far you can stretch what you do have available.
Any other questions?
One last question. I know the interest rate varies based on the time that we incur the debt. Does the cost to issue also vary, or is that a fixed cost?
Yeah, generally, the cost of issuance does not vary based on the interest rate. The cost of issuance frequently, well, the largest factor in the cost of issuance is the amount borrowed, the size of the transaction. And one of the features of going through the SCAGO program, which is a program where individual school districts will issue their own GO debt, and it's bundled up. and sold with millions of other dollars of school district debt. So in that cost of issuance, the costs are spread pro rata amongst all the participants. Generally, that program has only one bond rating, and the costs are shared, and the financial advisor and bond counsel fees are shared. So you do not have to prepare a preliminary official statement individually for the school district. So all in, this is a much cheaper way to access the money, this amount, than a traditional standalone bond. And that's one reason why we're so very comfortable recommending it's in y'all's best interest to go this route. But I could have Mike Gallagher, at y'all's convenience. Mike couldn't be here tonight, but Mike is the sort of part of the team that handles more of the numbers and would have a more complete answer on interest rates and cost of issuance. But so the more you borrow, the more the cost, and through SCAGO, the costs are shared amongst a number of districts.
Any other questions? If not, we need a motion to approve the resolution for selling the bonds shown in Exhibit D. Do I have a motion? Ms. Hutchison.
I move that we approve the resolution authorizing the issuance and sale of bonds not exceeding $11 million in general obligation bonds, as shown in Exhibit D.
Do we have a second? Ms. Baumgartner seconds. Any further discussion? Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. And that passes unanimously. Ms. Heiser, thank you for being here to explain that to us. Thank you. That brings us to item number 16, which is second and final reading of the board policies shown in Exhibit E. Do I have a motion?